Ethan had been on hundreds of missions, but nothing had prepared him for this planet. From the moment his boots touched the strange soil, he felt as if the world itself was alive watching him. The air shimmered faintly, carrying scents he had never known, sweet, metallic, and a hint of warmth that reminded him of home. He glanced around. The forest stretched endlessly with trees that glowed faintly from within, and vines that moved ever so slightly like curious fingers. He knew he had to collect biological samples, but a small part of him couldn't ignore the feeling that something extraordinary was about to happen. As he stepped carefully over a patch of moss that pulsed gently underfoot, a rustle came from behind a tall, luminescent fern. Ethan froze, scanning the shadows. From between the glowing plants emerged a small figure, no taller than 3 feet. Its skin shimmered in shades of blue and green, and its large, reflective eyes watched him cautiously. The figure held a delicate posture, almost like it was ready to flee. Ethan raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. The small alien girl blinked, and a strange sound came from her throat, a soft, almost musical tone that made the hairs on the back of Ethan's neck stand. Then she spoke in broken words that sounded eerily familiar. You smell like father." Ethan frowned. He had no idea what she meant. "My father?" he asked slowly. "I think you're mistaken." The girl's eyes widened and she took a hesitant step forward. "No, same. Smell?" she said, pointing at him and then at her chest. She repeated the phrase over and over, each time with a mix of fear and hope in her voice. Ethan realized that she wasn't speaking just to communicate. She was trying to connect on a level he didn't understand. The scent she mentioned lingered in the air, subtle but distinct. Ethan had never encountered a species with such acute sensitivity. It dawned on him that she might be able to recognize individuals through scent, perhaps even generations old. "You're alone?" he asked carefully. The girl nodded, her gaze dropping. Her small hands clutched at her chest, trembling slightly. Ethan's instincts kicked in. She was frightened, vulnerable, and far from safety. No matter what had brought her here, he couldn't leave her behind. The forest around them was alive with sounds, soft chittering, the rustle of leaves, and distant calls of creatures he couldn't see. Ethan realized that whatever life lived here was watching them, waiting for a chance to strike. The girl seemed to sense the danger too. She instinctively moved closer to him, brushing against his leg, her small hand gripping his pants. "I stay with you," she whispered. Ethan looked down at her, surprised by the determination in her voice. "All right," he said softly. "But you have to trust me. Can you do that?" The girl nodded, and together they moved deeper into the forest. Ethan's military training had prepared him for hostile planets, but he had never faced anything like this. The ground pulsed faintly under his boots, and strange plants shifted subtly as he walked. The girl guided him to areas where the terrain was safer, pointing with tiny fingers and making soft noises that seemed like a language of her own. As they moved, Ethan tried to piece together her story. She mentioned her father repeatedly, but no human records indicated that any humans had been on this planet. How could she know his scent? Her memories were fragmented, like snapshots of someone she loved but never fully understood. Ethan realized she was probably a hybrid of some kind, part human, part alien, and that her father had visited long ago, leaving traces of himself in her DNA. They came to a clearing where the light from the glowing trees painted the ground in shades of blue and gold. Ethan knelt to examine some unusual plants, noting their properties. The girl crouched beside him, her eyes wide with curiosity. She reached out to touch the plants gently, and when a leaf brushed her hand, it emitted a soft hum. Ethan's eyes widened. The flora here responded to touch, and the girl seemed attuned to it naturally. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the clearing. Ethan froze. His hand went instinctively to his sidearm, but he didn't draw it. He observed the shadows moving between the trees. A large creature emerged, its skin armored with jagged edges and glowing eyes. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a predator perfectly adapted to this strange environment. The girl gasped and clung to Ethan's arm. "Run!" she whispered, barely audible. Ethan didn't hesitate. He grabbed her small hand and sprinted, dodging twisting roots and leaping over glowing vines. The predator followed, its massive limbs moving silently but quickly, cutting through the undergrowth with ease. Ethan realized he had to be smarter than the creature. He led them through narrow paths, over floating rocks, and around dense clusters of glowing plants. Each step was calculated, drawing on every ounce of human ingenuity and survival instinct. At one point, Ethan stopped behind a giant tree with bark that seemed almost metallic. He turned to the girl. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "Stay quiet and do exactly what I do. Can you do that?" She nodded, gripping his hand tightly. Ethan crouched low and moved silently, showing her how to step without disturbing the ground. They navigated through the shadows, barely making a sound. The predator searched around, sniffing the air, but Ethan's careful planning and the girl's instinctual understanding of the terrain kept them hidden. After what felt like hours, they reached a small stream. The water glowed faintly and the air smelled fresher here. The girl bent down and touched the water with her hands, marveling at its glow. Ethan took a moment to catch his breath and observe her. She was incredible, adaptable, intelligent, and brave despite her small size. He felt a growing sense of responsibility for her, a connection that went beyond duty. "You're safe for now," he said softly, "but we need to find shelter and figure out what's really going on." The girl nodded and pointed toward a cave nearby, partially hidden behind a waterfall of shimmering mist. Ethan approached cautiously, ensuring it was safe. Inside, the cave was surprisingly spacious, with walls that reflected the soft glow from outside. He settled down and let the girl explore cautiously, keeping one eye on the entrance. As she wandered, she paused and touched the walls, which vibrated gently under her fingers. She looked at Ethan with wide eyes and said, "Father, made this?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "I don't think so," he said, "but it seems like this place is connected to him somehow." The girl's expression was a mix of sadness and hope. Ethan realized she was searching for answers, for a connection to someone she had never truly known. He felt a strange warmth in his chest. Humans had always been explorers, problem solvers, and protectors. Here was a being who needed that human spirit now more than ever. Night fell, and the glowing plants outside the cave cast eerie shadows across the walls. Ethan kept watch while the girl slept, her small body curled up near him. The forest outside was alive with sounds, but he felt confident that he could protect her. He thought about the scent she had mentioned, the fragment of memory that had drawn her to him. It was more than coincidence. It was fate. As the hours passed, Ethan considered the challenges ahead. He needed to understand her origins, keep her safe, and find a way off this planet. The predators were relentless. The terrain was dangerous, and the girl's presence made him a target. Yet in the midst of all this, he felt a sense of purpose he had never known. Protecting her was no longer a mission, it was personal. The forest outside shifted, and faint, glowing eyes watched from the shadows. Ethan tightened his grip on his sidearm, ready for whatever would come. The girl stirred beside him, murmuring softly, "You, my father." Ethan smiled faintly. "Not your father," he said gently, "but I will protect you no matter what." And with that promise, they settled into a tense, quiet night. Outside, the world pulsed with life, strange and dangerous, but within the small cave, a bond was forming, one that would shape the course of both their lives. By dawn, Ethan and the girl would face new challenges, creatures, and mysteries. But in this moment, they had each other, and that was enough to survive another day. The forest may have been alien, the dangers unprecedented, but the human spirit, resilient, clever, and compassionate, was proving itself stronger than any predator, more enduring than any fear, and the girl, who had wandered alone for so long, finally understood what it meant to be safe, even in a world that seemed determined to destroy everything she loved. The dawn light filtered through the glowing trees, painting the forest in soft shades of blue and gold. Ethan stirred first, alert as ever. Beside him, the small alien girl began to wake, blinking her large, iridescent eyes against the morning light. She stretched, her tiny fingers brushing the cave wall, and whispered softly, "Father." Ethan shook his head, smiling faintly. "Not your father. But I'm here, and I'll protect you." The girl nodded, seeming to understand, though her large eyes betrayed a lingering confusion. Ethan rose carefully, checking the perimeter of the cave. The forest beyond was alive, the plants shifting and swaying as if reacting to their presence. Ethan's mind raced with strategies. They could not stay here. The predators would soon realize where they were hiding. He led the girl out of the cave, keeping to the shadows, moving slowly but deliberately. The forest seemed to hum with life around them, yet they had to focus. Each step was cautious, each movement calculated. Ethan observed how the girl instinctively followed him, mirroring his motions and learning his silent methods of survival. She was smart, brave, and curious, traits that reminded him of humans in their purest form, adaptable and resilient. Hours passed as they traveled through the glowing forest. The girl's fascination with her surroundings never waned. She reached out to touch strange plants that pulsed with light, listening to the soft hums they made. Ethan watched her with a mix of pride and protectiveness. Despite the dangers around them, she had an uncanny ability to navigate the alien terrain, seemingly in tune with its rhythms. By midday, they reached a river that glowed faintly under the sunlight, filtering through the canopy. The water shimmered with ethereal colors and small creatures darted beneath the surface. Ethan knelt, examining the water and noting its unusual properties. The girl leaned close to him, her small hands hovering over the surface without touching it. "Safe?" she asked in a whisper. "For now," Ethan replied, smiling. "But we need to keep moving." He spotted a faint path along the riverbank and decided to follow it. The forest thickened as they moved, branches intertwining to create natural arches above their heads. It was beautiful, but Ethan knew beauty often hid danger. A low rumble echoed from deeper in the forest, and he instinctively pulled the girl close. Shadows moved between the trees, shapes too large and fast for his eyes to follow easily. The predator from the previous day emerged, bigger and more aggressive, its glowing eyes locked on them. Ethan didn't panic. He had learned from their encounter. Using the girl's natural instincts and his own human ingenuity, he led them through a series of traps and diversions. He toppled a series of luminous vines, creating a wall of light and sound to confuse the creature. The girl mimicked his movements perfectly, ducking and rolling with him, her small form nimble and quick. The predator hesitated, then lunged. Ethan triggered a trap, a swinging branch he had set earlier, sending the creature crashing into the undergrowth. It roared, stunned but not defeated. Ethan grabbed the girl's hand and ran, weaving through the forest with renewed determination. After a tense chase, they stumbled into a hidden clearing, where the remains of a structure stood half buried in the glowing soil. It looked ancient, alien, yet strangely familiar. The girl's eyes widened and she whispered, "Father." "Here?" Ethan examined the structure. It was a small laboratory, long abandoned, filled with strange devices and holographic projections that flickered faintly in the dim light. He realized that this must have been where her father, or someone connected to him, had worked. The girl moved closer to the devices, touching them cautiously. Each interaction triggered faint lights and sounds, as if the place recognized her. As they explored, Ethan noticed a holographic record flickering in the corner of the room. He activated it, revealing the image of a human scientist, her father. The girl gasped, taking a hesitant step toward the projection. Her hands trembled as she reached out. "Father," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Ethan stood behind her, observing quietly. He felt a mix of awe and responsibility. This discovery explained the girl's scent recognition, her instincts, and her fragmented memories. She was a bridge between two worlds, human and alien. And now he understood why she had clung to him so fiercely. She had been searching for this connection her entire life. Suddenly the forest trembled. Ethan looked out the window of the structure and saw multiple predators approaching, drawn by the scent and the disturbance. He grabbed the girl's hand and pulled her toward a reinforced section of the lab. "Stay close," he instructed. "We can defend ourselves here." The creatures attacked, smashing through the outer walls. Ethan used the lab's environment to his advantage. Strange energy fields flickered to life as he touched the control panels, creating barriers and traps that stunned the predators. The girl watched him wide-eyed and then instinctively began to mimic his actions, touching panels and activating mechanisms. Together they coordinated a defense, blending human ingenuity with her instinctive knowledge of the alien systems. After a tense struggle, the predators were forced back, injured, but not gone. Ethan knew this was only temporary. He turned to the girl. "We can't stay here," he said. "We need to move to safety, but I'll get us off this planet." The girl nodded, her trust in him absolute. She had survived alone for so long, yet now she willingly followed him, believing in his ability to protect her. Ethan felt a surge of pride and responsibility. Humans were often underestimated, even by other species, but in moments like this, their resourcefulness and courage shone brightest. They traveled again, this time cautiously avoiding open areas and using the forest's natural features for cover. The girl learned quickly, observing Ethan's tactics and copying his movements. She helped him identify hidden dangers, warn him of shifting terrain, and even detect predators before they arrived. Her intelligence and adaptability were remarkable, reminding Ethan of the very best qualities humans could exhibit: curiosity, resilience, and the ability to think under pressure. As night fell, they reached a plateau overlooking the glowing forest below. Ethan set up a small camp using portable shields and energy barriers. The girl sat beside him, watching the forest with wide, curious eyes. "Safe?" she asked. "For tonight," Ethan replied, smiling. "Tomorrow we'll find a way off this planet." The girl leaned against him, and for a moment Ethan allowed himself to feel hope. They had survived incredible dangers together. They had formed a bond that went beyond species, beyond language, beyond time. She had found someone she could trust, and he had found a purpose greater than any mission or duty. As they rested, Ethan thought about the future. The girl's father had left a legacy here, one that combined human and alien knowledge. Together, Ethan and the girl could uncover it, learn from it, and perhaps bring it back to the rest of humanity. But more than that, he realized that their bond, trust, courage, and compassion, was a testament to what humans could achieve even in the most alien worlds. The night passed quietly. With the girl asleep against him and the forest alive with gentle sounds, Ethan kept watch, alert and ready, but he felt a rare sense of calm. They had survived another day, and the human spirit, the ability to adapt, to protect, and to inspire trust, had once again proven stronger than fear or danger. When dawn arrived, they packed up and continued their journey. The girl now followed without hesitation, mimicking his movements, learning from his example and trusting his guidance completely. Together, they navigated treacherous terrain, using both her instincts and his knowledge to stay ahead of predators and environmental hazards. Finally, they reached the edge of the forest and found a landing area where Ethan had previously hidden a small human scout ship. The girl's eyes widened in amazement at the sight of the vessel. She looked at Ethan, her expression a mix of excitement and relief. "Fly?" she asked. "Yes," Ethan said, helping her into the ship. "And then we go home, or at least back to human space." As the ship lifted off, leaving the glowing forest behind, Ethan glanced at the girl. She looked out the window, her small hands pressed to the glass, and whispered, "Father." "Thank you." Ethan smiled, understanding what she meant. Not as a father in the biological sense, but as someone who had protected, guided, and believed in her. Someone who had shown her that trust and courage could overcome even the most alien of dangers. The journey ahead would not be easy. They would face new challenges, unknown worlds, and complex questions about her origins and the legacy of her father. But for now they were together, and that was enough. The human spirit, resilient, compassionate, and clever, had once again triumphed in the face of adversity, and the girl, who had wandered alone for so long, had finally found safety, guidance, and the beginning of a new life. A life shaped not just by survival but by trust, courage, and the extraordinary bond between a human and a being from a world beyond imagination.